The boss froze when he saw his missing daughter's teddy bear with the truck driver. The night fell heavy over the city as Thomas Whitaker pulled his luxury sedan into the gas station off the highway. He was 50 years old, wearing a dark suit that probably cost more than most people made in a month, but his gray eyes carried a kind of sadness that no amount of money had ever been able to erase. Not in 22 years. He'd just left a meeting where he'd closed a multi-million-dollar deal, the kind of deal that would have made him jump for joy once upon a time. Now, it felt like going through the motions. Everything had felt that way since October 1st. 2003, while he waited for the attendant to fill up his tank, Thomas leaned against the car door and let his gaze wander across the lot. That's when he saw her. A young woman was climbing down from the cab of a massive 18-wheeler, moving with the kind of confidence that comes from doing something 1,000 times before. She looked about 28, with sun-bronzed skin and dark hair pulled back in a messy ponytail. Her work clothes were stained with grease, and her hands, rough, calloused hands, gripped a steaming cup of coffee as she walked around to check the tires. Thomas almost looked away, almost went back to staring at his phone, scrolling through emails he didn't care about. But then he saw it, hanging from the rearview mirror of her truck, swaying gently in the night breeze, was a stuffed animal, a small blue teddy bear with a faded red bow around its neck. Thomas felt the air leave his lungs. It was impossible. It couldn't be the same one. There had to be thousands of bears like that, right? Mass-produced toys sold at every fair and carnival across the country. But this one looked exactly like the bear he'd bought 23 years ago at the county fair. The same one he'd placed in his daughter Lily's tiny hands the night before she disappeared. His hands started trembling. The ground seemed to shift beneath his feet. He took 2 steps forward before he even realized he was moving, unable to tear his eyes away from that small, worn toy dancing in the dim light. "Excuse me, miss?" His voice came out hoarse, barely more than a whisper. The young woman turned around, her expression instantly guarded. She was used to men in expensive suits looking at her like she didn't belong in her line of work. Her dark eyes sized him up in a heartbeat. "Yeah," Thomas pointed at the bear with a shaking hand. "That stuffed animal. Where did you get it?" She frowned, clearly thrown off by the intensity in his voice. "It's mine. Had it since I was a kid." "Why?" Thomas closed his eyes, and suddenly he was back there, 22 years ago. That rainy October afternoon when his wife Margaret had taken Lily to the store to buy bread. Just bread. They'd never come home. The police found the car flipped over in a ravine about an hour outside the city. Margaret's body was still in the driver's seat, but Lily, his 6-year-old baby girl with the bright smile and pigtails, was gone, vanished like smoke. The cops talked about kidnapping, trafficking, accident trauma. Search parties combed the woods for weeks. They dragged the nearby creek. Nothing. Not a shoe. Not a piece of clothing. Not a single trace. Just gone. Thomas had hired private investigators, offered $1 million rewards, traveled to every hospital and orphanage within 200 miles. For years, he'd chased every lead, no matter how thin. He'd seen therapists who told him he needed to accept that she was probably dead. He'd ignored them all. Eventually, the leads dried up. The investigators moved on to other cases. Everyone told him it was time to let go, to move forward, so he'd done what broken men do. He'd built an empire. Whitaker Industries became one of the most successful construction companies in the region. He poured everything into work, into deals and contracts and bottom lines. But every single night, he sat in his study and looked at the same photograph on his desk. Lily at 6 years old, grinning at the camera, hugging that blue teddy bear with the red bow, the bear he'd won for her at a ring toss game, right before they'd gotten ice cream and she'd spilled strawberry all over her white dress. Margaret had laughed. God, he could still hear that laugh. "Sir, you okay?" Thomas opened his eyes. The young woman was staring at him now with something closer to concern than suspicion. "I'm sorry," he managed. That bear, it looks like one I gave to someone a long time ago." She glanced back at her truck, at the small toy swaying in the window. "Yeah, well, it's the only thing I've got from before. The orphanage let me keep it." Thomas's heart stuttered. "Orphanage? Yeah." She shifted her weight, clearly uncomfortable with wherever this conversation was heading. "Look, I don't really like talking about..." "Which orphanage?" The words came out sharper than he intended. She took a step back. "Why do you want to know?" "Please." His voice cracked. "Just, please." The woman studied his face for a long moment, like she was trying to figure out if he was dangerous or just crazy. Maybe both. "San Miguel," she finally said. "In Jalisco. But I don't remember anything before that. They found me when I was 6, wandering around on some highway. No ID, no memory. Nothing. Just that bear." Thomas felt like someone had punched him in the chest. Jalisco. The accident had happened just over the border. Lily would have been 6. "What's your name?" he whispered. "Riley. Riley Monroe." She set down her coffee cup, her guard fully up now. "Look, mister, I don't know what this is about, but I've got a delivery to make, so wait." Thomas pulled out his wallet with shaking hands and retrieved a business card. "I'm Thomas Whitaker. I own a construction company. We're always looking for reliable freight haulers. If you're interested in some work, give me a call." Riley took the card, looking at it like it might bite her. "You're offering me a job, just like that. We pay well, fair rates, consistent work." He was making it up as he went along, his mind racing. He needed time. He needed to figure this out. Think about it. She pocketed the card without much enthusiasm. "Sure, thanks, I guess." Thomas watched as she climbed back into her truck and started the engine. The bear swayed one more time as the vehicle rumbled to life, and then she was pulling out of the lot, disappearing into the night. He stood there for a long time after she was gone, staring at the empty space where her truck had been. 22 years. 22 years of searching, of hoping, of grieving. 22 years of building walls around his heart and telling himself she was gone forever. And now this, a young woman with no memory, the right age, the right place, and that bear, that impossible, heart-stopping bear. Thomas got back in his car and gripped the steering wheel so hard his knuckles turned white. He needed to be careful. He couldn't just walk up to her and say, "I think you're my dead daughter." She'd run, and he'd never see her again. But he also couldn't let this go. Not now. Not when fate, or God, or whatever force moved the universe, had put her right in front of him. As he pulled back onto the highway, heading toward his empty mansion on the hill, Thomas made himself a promise. He would find out the truth, no matter what it took. Riley Monroe didn't call. For 3 days, Thomas waited by his phone like a teenager hoping for a text back. He tried to focus on work. There were contracts to review, meetings to attend, a whole company that needed his attention. But his mind kept drifting back to that gas station, to the bear, to her. On the 4th day, he had his assistant track down Riley's information. It wasn't hard. Independent truckers had to be licensed, registered. Within an hour, he had her number, her address, her work history. He felt like a creep doing it, but he didn't stop. That afternoon, he called her directly. "Hello?" Her voice was cautious, like she got a lot of spam calls. "Ms. Monroe, this is Thomas Whitaker. We met at the gas station a few days ago." A pause. "The suit with the weird questions about my bear?" "Yes." He cleared his throat. "I meant what I said about the work. I've got a shipment of construction materials that needs to go from here to a site up north. $2,000 for the haul. Interested?" Another pause. Longer this time. He could practically hear her thinking, weighing whether this was legitimate or some kind of scam. "When?" she finally asked. "Tomorrow morning. I'll text you the details." "Fine, but I want half up front." "Done." She hung up without saying goodbye. Thomas sat back in his leather office chair and let out a breath he didn't know he'd been holding. It was a start. The next morning, Riley showed up at the Whitaker Industries warehouse right on time. She backed her rig up to the loading dock like she'd done it 1,000 times before, which she probably had. Thomas watched from his office window as his crew loaded pallets of lumber and steel beams into her trailer. He told himself he was just making sure the job got done right, that he wasn't staring at her like some kind of stalker, looking for clues in the way she moved, the way she talked to his workers. But he was. God help him. He was. When the truck was loaded, Thomas walked down to the dock. "Everything looked good?" he asked. Riley was checking her straps, making sure the load was secure. She glanced at him over her shoulder. "Yeah, I'll have it there by tonight." Mind if I ride along? I want to check out the site myself, and my car's in the shop. It was a lie. His car was fine. But Riley just shrugged. Your funeral? It's not exactly a luxury ride. The cab of Riley's truck smelled like coffee, diesel fuel, and the faint scent of vanilla air freshener. The seat was worn but clean, and there were maps scattered across the dashboard along with a few energy bar wrappers. And there, hanging from the mirror, was the bear. Thomas couldn't stop looking at it. They drove in silence for the first 20 miles. Riley's eyes on the road, Thomas pretending to check his phone. Finally, she spoke. So what's the deal with the bear? You looked like you'd seen a ghost back at that gas station. Thomas had prepared for this question. It reminded me of one I gave to my daughter, a long time ago. Where is she now? The question was so casual, so innocent. Riley had no idea she was stepping on a landmine. She died, Thomas said quietly. Car accident. 22 years ago. Riley's jaw tightened. I'm sorry. She was 6. Riley didn't respond right away. The highway stretched out in front of them, empty and endless. Finally, she said, That's rough, losing a kid. I can't even imagine. Do you have family? Thomas asked, trying to keep his voice steady. Nope, just me. She took a sip from her coffee cup. I told you, I grew up in an orphanage, San Miguel, down in Jalisco. Nobody ever came looking for me. So I guess whoever I belonged to didn't want me back. The words were matter of fact, but Thomas could hear the old pain underneath them. You really don't remember anything from before? She shot him a look. You ask a lot of personal questions for a guy who just hired me to haul lumber. Sorry, I'm just curious. Riley sighed. No, I don't remember. The nuns told me they found me on the side of Highway 54, just walking, covered in dirt, crying. I had a bump on my head. They think maybe I fell, or something happened. Doctor said it was traumatic amnesia, that sometimes kids just block things out. And the bear, I was holding it when they found me, wouldn't let go. They said I screamed every time someone tried to take it away, so eventually they just let me keep it. She glanced at the toy swaying in the mirror. Stupid, right? A grown woman still carrying around a stuffed animal. It's not stupid, Thomas said softly. It's all you have. Riley looked at him then. Really looked at him, like she was trying to figure out who he was. Yeah, she said finally. Yeah, it is. Over the next hour, Thomas carefully drew out more details. Riley had aged out of the orphanage at 18 and had been on her own ever since. She'd worked odd jobs, waitress, mechanic, gas station attendant, before finally saving up enough to get her commercial driver's license. Trucking paid better than anything else she'd tried, and she liked the freedom of the road. No ties, she said. Nobody waiting for me to come home. Nobody disappointed when I don't. It's easier that way. Thomas heard the loneliness in those words, and it broke his heart. You ever dream about them? He asked. Your family, before? Riley was quiet for a long moment. The truck hummed beneath them, eating up mile after mile of asphalt. Sometimes, she admitted. Nothing clear, just feelings mostly. Like there's this voice, a woman's voice, singing, and I smell coffee, the good kind, not this gas station crap. And there's a garden, roses, I think. But I don't know if that's real or just something my brain made up to fill the gaps. Thomas felt like he couldn't breathe. Margaret used to sing every morning while she made coffee. Their house in Pacific Palisades had a garden full of roses. Margaret's pride and joy. She'd spent every weekend out there, pruning and watering, singing to herself. Maybe they're real, Thomas said, his voice barely audible over the engine noise. Maybe. Riley didn't sound convinced. Or maybe I watched too many movies and my head stitched together some fantasy family. Either way, it doesn't matter. They're not coming for me. It's been 22 years. If they wanted me, they would have found me by now. Thomas stared out the window at the landscape rushing past. She was right there, right next to him. His daughter. If she was his daughter. And she had no idea. She'd spent her whole life thinking nobody wanted her. That nobody had looked for her. He wanted to tell her the truth right then. Wanted to say, I looked. God. I looked everywhere. I never stopped looking. But he couldn't. Not yet. Not without proof. People look for what they've lost. he said instead. Sometimes it just takes time to find them. Riley glanced at him, one eyebrow raised. That's pretty philosophical for a construction guy. Thomas managed a small smile. I've had a lot of time to think. The truck rolled on through the golden afternoon light, carrying its cargo north, and Thomas Whitaker sat in the passenger seat, watching his daughter drive, knowing everything and able to say nothing. Eleanor Whitaker noticed the change in her brother immediately. For 22 years, Thomas had been predictable. He went to the office, closed deals, came home to his empty mansion, and repeated the cycle. He was functional, efficient, dead inside. That's how Eleanor liked him. But lately, something had shifted. He was distracted during board meetings. He smiled at random moments, staring off into space like he was remembering something pleasant. And worst of all, he'd been leaving the office early. Thomas never left early. Eleanor stood at the window of her corner office on the 42nd floor, watching the city sprawl beneath her like a kingdom she was meant to inherit. She was 45, elegant in the way wealthy women are, perfectly styled blonde hair, designer clothes that cost more than a car, jewelry that caught the light just right. But her blue eyes were cold, calculating. She'd worked too hard, waited too long, to let anything threaten her position now. Her assistant, a nervous young man named Marcus, knocked on her doorframe. Ms. Whitaker, you asked me to keep track of Mr. Whitaker's calendar. And he's been meeting with a freight hauler, Riley Monroe, independent contractor. He's used her for 3 different shipments in the past 2 weeks, and he's been riding along with her, personally overseeing deliveries. Eleanor turned from the window. Thomas doesn't oversee deliveries. We have people for that. I know. Ma'am, that's why I thought you should know. Find out everything you can about this Riley Monroe. Where she's from, where she lives, her background. Everything. Marcus nodded and disappeared. Eleanor poured herself a glass of scotch. Expensive. Single malt. The kind that burned perfectly going down. And sat behind her mahogany desk. The same desk that used to belong to their father before he died and left everything to Thomas. The golden boy. The firstborn son. She'd spent her whole life in Thomas's shadow. Daddy's favorite. The one who could do no wrong. And when Margaret and Lily died in that accident, Eleanor had felt terrible. Truly. But she'd also seen an opportunity. With Lily gone, Eleanor became the heir. Thomas had no other children. Showed no interest in remarrying. The company would eventually pass to her. She'd been patient, played the supportive sister, waited for Thomas to either die or sign everything over in a grief-fueled moment of weakness. 22 years of waiting. And now this trucker woman had his attention. By the next afternoon, Marcus had compiled a full report. Eleanor read through it twice, her stomach knotting tighter with each page. Riley Monroe, 28 years old, grew up in San Miguel Orphanage in Jalisco, Mexico, found wandering on Highway 54 at age 6 with no memory and no identification. Amnesia attributed to head trauma. Aged out of the system at 18. No known family. Eleanor set down the file and did the math. Lily had disappeared 22 years ago. She would have been 28 now. The timeline matched perfectly. And then there was the photograph Marcus had found. A social media post from 2 years ago. Riley standing next to her truck, smiling, giving a thumbs up. And there, hanging from her rearview mirror, clearly visible in the shot, a small blue stuffed bear. Eleanor's hands started to shake. She pulled out her phone and scrolled through her photos until she found what she was looking for. An old family picture from one of the last Christmases before the accident. Little Lily, gap-toothed and grinning, hugging a blue teddy bear with a red bow. She compared the 2 images side by side. It was the same bear. Had to be. No, Eleanor whispered to herself. No. This couldn't be happening. Lily was dead. Lily had been dead for 22 years. The police said so. The investigators said so. Everyone said so. But what if she wasn't? What if Thomas had found her? Eleanor stood abruptly, pacing her office like a caged animal. If Riley Monroe was really Lily Whitaker, everything would change. Thomas would have an heir again. A real heir. His daughter. The company would go to her, not Eleanor. Everything Eleanor had built, everything she'd waited for, would evaporate overnight. She couldn't let that happen. Eleanor made 2 phone calls that evening. The first was to a private investigator named Derek Chen, someone discreet who'd done work for her before. She wanted to know everything about Riley Monroe that wasn't in the initial report. Bank accounts, debts, relationships, secrets. Everyone had secrets. The second call was to Thomas. "Eleanor," her brother answered, sounding surprised. They didn't talk much outside of work. "What's up?" "I'm worried about you." A pause. "Worried? Why?" "You've been distracted lately, leaving early. I heard you've been spending time with some truck driver." She kept her voice light, sisterly, concerned. "That's not like you. Her name is Riley, and she's hauling materials for the northern site expansion. I'm just making sure everything runs smoothly by riding along in her truck." Eleanor let out a soft laugh. "Thomas, come on. We have project managers for that. What's really going on?" Another pause, longer this time. "Nothing, just being thorough." "Is this about Lily?" The silence that followed was deafening. "Thomas," Eleanor said gently, "I know today is hard. It's the anniversary next week. But you can't keep doing this to yourself. You can't see Lily and every young woman who crosses your path. Remember that girl in Portland and the one in Austin? You put them through hell trying to prove they were your daughter. And they weren't. They were just innocent people you hurt with your obsession. It was a lie. There'd been no women in Portland or Austin. But Thomas was vulnerable right now. Desperate. He'd believe what he wanted to believe. "This is different," Thomas said quietly. "That's what you said last time, please. Just be careful, for your own sake." She hung up before he could respond. Eleanor stared at her reflection in the darkened window of her office. Somewhere out there in the city, Riley Monroe was driving her truck, completely unaware that she was about to become the center of a war she didn't even know existed. Eleanor would do whatever it took to protect her inheritance. Whatever it took. 3 days later, Derek Chen sent his report. Riley Monroe was broke, living paycheck to paycheck in a crappy apartment in El Monte. No family, no close friends, no romantic relationships. She was a loner who spent her life on the road, sleeping in truck stops, eating gas station food. She was also proud, refused charity, turned down a Christmas bonus from a previous employer because she said she didn't earn it. Eleanor smiled. Pride was a weakness she could exploit, but there was something else in the report that caught her attention. Riley had been asking questions lately, casual questions to some of the other truckers who worked Whitaker jobs. Questions about Thomas, about his family, about what happened to his daughter. So she knew, or at least suspected, that made things more complicated. Eleanor poured herself another scotch and watched the city lights flicker below. She thought about all the years she'd spent managing this company, covering for Thomas when he was too grief-stricken to function, making the hard decisions he couldn't make. She'd earned this empire, even if her name wasn't officially on it yet. She wasn't going to lose it to some truck driver with amnesia and a stuffed animal. Tomorrow, she'd pay Riley Monroe a visit, woman to woman. She'd make her understand that some ghosts were better left buried, and if Riley didn't listen, well, Eleanor had always been good at making problems disappear. Riley was wiping down her truck after a long haul when the black Mercedes pulled up outside her apartment building. She didn't think much of it at first. Fancy cars occasionally got lost in this neighborhood, looking for the freeway on-ramp. But then a woman stepped out, blonde, polished, wearing a cream-colored suit that probably cost more than Riley's entire wardrobe. She looked around the run-down street like she'd just landed on another planet. Riley tossed her rag into a bucket and walked over, wiping her hands on her jeans. "You lost." The woman turned, and Riley saw the resemblance immediately. Same sharp cheekbones as Thomas. Same cool, assessing gaze. Riley Monroe. The woman extended a manicured hand. "I'm Eleanor Whitaker, Thomas's sister." Riley shook her hand warily. "Okay, what can I do for you? Can we talk inside, preferably? This really isn't a conversation for the street." Every instinct Riley had told her to say no. But curiosity won out. She led Eleanor up the narrow staircase to her second-floor apartment, acutely aware of the peeling paint, the flickering hallway light, the smell of someone's cooking seeping through the walls. Inside, her place was small, but clean. A futon, a TV on a milk crate, a kitchenette barely big enough to turn around in. Eleanor's eyes swept across it all with barely concealed disdain. "Coffee," Riley offered. more out of habit than hospitality. "No, thank you." Eleanor sat on the edge of the futon like she was afraid it might contaminate her. "I'll get straight to the point. My brother has become fixated on you." Riley crossed her arms. "He's hired me for a few jobs, that's it." "Is it?" Eleanor tilted her head. "Has he asked you about your past? About where you came from? About that stuffed animal in your truck?" Riley felt her stomach drop. "How do you know about—" "Because I know my brother, and I know his illness." "Illness?" Eleanor sighed, and for a moment she looked genuinely sad. It was a good performance. Thomas has an obsession. He thinks every young woman he meets might be his daughter. "Lily, she died in a car accident 22 years ago, and he's never recovered." "He told me about the accident," Riley said carefully. "Did he tell you about the others?" "Others." Eleanor leaned forward, her voice dropping to something intimate, conspiratorial. "You're not the first, Riley. There was a girl in Portland 3 years ago, 26 years old, grew up in foster care. Thomas became convinced she was Lily, hired her, just like he hired you, spent months gaining her trust, asking her questions, getting close to her, and then he insisted she take a DNA test." Riley's mouth went dry. When it came back negative, Eleanor continued, "He had a breakdown, accused her of lying, of hiding the truth. He became aggressive, obsessive. The poor woman had to get a restraining order. It destroyed her life. She lost her job, had to move across the country to get away from him." That doesn't sound like Thomas. Grief does terrible things to people." Eleanor's eyes were sympathetic, understanding. "There was another woman in Austin. Same story. And before that, one in Sacramento. Each time, Thomas convinces himself he's found Lily. Each time he's wrong, and each time, he leaves destruction in his wake." Riley walked to the window, staring out at her truck parked below. The bear was still there, swaying slightly in the evening breeze. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because I care about my brother, and because I don't want to see him hurt you, or hurt himself again." Eleanor stood, smoothing her skirt. "I know he's paying you well. I know the work is steady. But it's not worth it, Riley. He's going to ask you to take a DNA test. He's going to tell you that you might be his daughter. And when you're not, and you won't be, because Lily is dead, he'll turn on you. He'll make your life hell." Riley turned to face her. "What do you want me to do?" Eleanor opened her purse and pulled out a checkbook. She wrote quickly, then tore off the check and placed it on the small table by the door. "Leave tonight. Take this money. Go to another state. Start fresh somewhere Thomas won't find you. It's $100,000, enough to set yourself up properly. Maybe even buy your own rig outright." Riley stared at the check. $100,000. More money than she'd ever seen in her life. Enough to change everything. She picked it up, felt the weight of the paper in her hands. Then she tore it in half. "I don't need your money," Riley said quietly. Eleanor's mask slipped for just a second, a flash of anger crossing her face before she smoothed it away. "Don't be stupid. This is your chance to what? Run away because your brother has problems." Riley walked to the door and opened it. "I appreciate the warning, Mrs. Whitaker, but I'm not some damsel who needs saving. If Thomas wants to talk to me about DNA tests or dead daughters or whatever, that's between him and me, not you." Eleanor collected her purse slowly, her movements deliberate. When she reached the door, she stopped and looked Riley directly in the eyes. "You think you're strong, independent. You've survived on your own this long. So why would you need anyone's help, right?" Her voice was cold now, all pretense of warmth gone. "But you have no idea what you're dealing with. Thomas Whitaker is a powerful man with unlimited resources and a broken mind. When he decides you're not who he wants you to be, he will destroy you, and I won't be here to pick up the pieces. Then I guess I'll handle it myself. I always do." Eleanor studied her for a long moment, then smiled. It wasn't a friendly smile. "Yes," she said softly. "I suppose you will," after Eleanor left. Riley stood in her apartment for a long time, staring at the torn check on the floor. She thought about Thomas, about the way he'd looked at her that first night at the gas station, like he was seeing a ghost, about his questions, his interest, his sadness. She thought about the bear in her truck, the only thing she had from before, from whoever she'd been, and she thought about Eleanor's story, The women in Portland, Austin, Sacramento, the restraining orders, the destruction. Riley had spent her whole life taking care of herself. She didn't trust easily, didn't let people in. It was safer that way, cleaner. But some part of her had wanted to believe that Thomas's interest was genuine, that maybe, just maybe, there was someone out there who'd been looking for her all this time. Eleanor's words echoed in her head. Lily is dead. Riley walked to her small closet and pulled down the duffel bag she used when she needed to disappear quickly. She'd done it before, packed up and left in the middle of the night when situations got too complicated. When people got too close, she started throwing clothes into the bag. She didn't need Thomas Whitaker's money or his grief or his obsession. She didn't need anyone. That's what she told herself as she packed. That's what she'd always told herself by midnight. Her apartment was empty except for the furniture. Riley loaded her duffel into the truck, climbed into the cab, and looked at the blue bear hanging from her mirror. "Just you and me," she whispered to it. Like always. She started the engine and pulled out onto the dark street, heading north with no particular destination in mind. Just away, always away. Behind her, in the shadows across the street, Eleanor Whitaker sat in her Mercedes and watched the taillights disappear into the night. She smiled and pulled out her phone. Mission accomplished. Thomas called Riley's phone 17 times the next day. Every call went straight to voicemail. Every text went unanswered. By the second day, he drove to her apartment in El Monte. The landlord, a heavy-set man who smelled like cigarettes, told him she'd cleared out overnight, paid what she owed and left without a forwarding address. "She'd do that sometimes," the landlord said, scratching his belly. "Drifters, you know, they don't stick around long." Thomas stood in the empty apartment, if you could even call it that. Just 4 walls and a window overlooking the parking lot. No trace of Riley left behind. It was like she'd never existed. He walked to where her truck had been parked and found a small oil stain on the pavement. That was it. That was all that remained. Thomas got back in his car and gripped the steering wheel until his knuckles went white. She was gone. Lily was gone. Again. The third day. Thomas couldn't focus on anything. He sat through a board meeting without hearing a single word. Eleanor kept shooting him concerned looks across the conference table, and he wanted to throw something at her perfectly sympathetic face. His assistant knocked on his office door that afternoon. "Mr. Whitaker, there's a delivery company on the line. They say Riley Monroe returned their freight contract. They're asking if you want to—" "I don't care." Thomas didn't look up from his desk. "Handle it." "Sir, are you—" "Close the door on your way out." Alone in his office, Thomas opened the bottom drawer of his desk and pulled out the file he'd kept hidden for 22 years. Lily's file, police reports, hospital records, witness statements, private investigator notes. He'd read through it 1,000 times, looking for something everyone else had missed. He pulled out the photograph he kept paper-clipped to the inside cover. Lily at 6, holding that blue bear, smiling at the camera like she didn't have a care in the world. Thomas set it on his desk next to his computer monitor and opened a new browser window. He typed, "San Miguel Orphanage, Jalisco." The website was outdated, barely functional. But there was a phone number, he called it. A woman answered in Spanish. Thomas's Spanish was rusty, but he managed. "I'm looking for records. A girl who was brought there 22 years ago, October 2003. Sir, we cannot give out information about our children. It is private. Please, I think she might be my daughter. She was in a car accident. She had amnesia. Sir, I am sorry, but her name was Lily Whitaker." His voice cracked. "Please." The woman was quiet for a moment. Then, "What is your name?" Thomas Whitaker." "Hold, please." He held. For 10 minutes that felt like 10 hours. He held finally. A different voice came on the line. Older. Tired. "Mr. Whitaker, this is Sister Maria Gonzalez. I was here in 2003. I remember the girl you speak of." Thomas's heart stopped. "You do?" "A little girl, found on Highway 54. She was 6, maybe 7. She had a head injury. She was crying, holding a toy bear. She could not remember anything. Her name, her family, nothing. We called her Anna until she was old enough to choose her own name." "What did she choose?" Thomas whispered. "Riley. She said it sounded strong. Thomas closed his eyes. Where is she now? She left when she turned 18. That was 10 years ago. We have not heard from her since. Sister Maria paused. Mr. Whitaker, many families came looking for children over the years. Many fathers thought they had found their lost daughters, but the tests, they were always negative. Did you try to find her family, DNA databases, missing children registries? We tried, yes. But this was Mexico in 2003. Our systems were not like they are now, and the child had no identification, no fingerprints on file. We did what we could. Is there anything else? Anything you remember about her? Sister Maria was quiet for so long, Thomas thought she'd hung up. She used to have nightmares, the woman finally said. She would wake up screaming for her mama, and she would sing to herself sometimes. This little song, I never knew what it was. Can you remember any of it? Sister Maria hummed softly, a melody that made Thomas's blood run cold. It was You Are My Sunshine, Margaret's song, the one she sang to Lily every night before bed. Thank you, Thomas managed. Thank you, sister. He hung up before she could say anything else. The fourth day, Thomas hired 3 different private investigators to find Riley Monroe. He gave them everything. Her license plate number, her truck registration, her social security number. Modern technology made people nearly impossible to hide. But Riley had disappeared like smoke. One of the investigators called him that evening. Mr. Whitaker, she's good. Real good. She paid cash for everything, ditched her phone, probably using a burner now. Her truck's plates don't ping on any cameras. It's like she's done this before. Keep looking. Sir, it could take months, maybe longer. People who don't want to be found, usually. I don't care how long it takes. Find her. Thomas hung up and stared at the photograph of Lily on his desk. His beautiful little girl, with the gap-toothed smile and the blue bear. I found you, he thought. I finally found you and I lost you again. The nightmares came back that week. Thomas hadn't had them in years. He'd learned to numb himself, to function on autopilot, but now they returned with a vengeance. In the dreams, he was always driving. Margaret was in the passenger seat, Lily in the back. They were laughing, singing along to the radio, and then the rain started. The road got slippery. The car started to skid. Thomas would reach for the wheel, but his hands would pass right through it like he was a ghost. He'd scream at Margaret to slow down, but she couldn't hear him. And then the car would flip, tumbling down the ravine in slow motion, while Lily's terrified screams filled his ears. He'd wake up drenched in sweat, gasping for air, reaching for people who weren't there. 2 weeks after Riley disappeared, Thomas sat in his study with a bottle of scotch, and Lily's file spread across his desk. He'd stopped going to the office, stopped answering calls. Eleanor had tried to visit twice, but he'd told his housekeeper to send her away. He picked up the photograph of Lily and studied every detail. Her eyes, her smile, the way she held that bear like it was the most precious thing in the world. Then he opened his laptop and pulled up the grainy photo Marcus had found. Riley standing next to her truck with the same bear hanging in the mirror. He put the images side by side and just stared. The curve of the jaw, the shape of the eyes, even the way she stood, weight on one leg, arms crossed. It was Margaret's stance. 22 years of searching, of hoping, of dying slowly inside. And when he'd finally found her, she'd vanished. Thomas poured himself another drink and watched the night settle over the hills outside his window. Somewhere out there, Riley Monroe was driving through the darkness, running from ghosts she didn't even remember, running from a father she didn't know she had, and Thomas had no idea how to find her. 3 weeks had passed since Riley disappeared when Thomas's assistant knocked on his study door. He'd been working from home. If you could call staring at spreadsheets without seeing them working, the house felt too big, too empty, too full of memories. Every room reminded him of Margaret. Every silence reminded him of Lily's laughter that used to fill these halls. Mr. Whitaker. Jennifer stood in the doorway, hesitant. She'd been with him for 15 years, and had never seen him like this. This just came for you, hand-delivered, no return address. She held out a manila envelope, thick and unmarked. Thomas took it without much interest. Probably another contract, another deal, another thing that didn't matter. Jennifer lingered. "Sir, can I get you anything? You haven't eaten today?" "I'm fine. Close the door, please." She did, reluctantly. Thomas set the envelope on his desk and poured himself a drink. It was barely noon, but who was counting? He'd stopped counting a lot of things lately. Days, drinks, reasons to keep going. He picked up the envelope again, more to have something to do with his hands than out of actual curiosity. The seal was already loose. He opened it and dumped the contents onto his desk. Photographs spilled out. Old ones, grainy, the kind printed on cheap paper that yellows with age. Thomas's breath caught. The first photo showed a car, his car, Margaret's silver sedan, mangled and upside down in a ravine. He remembered this picture. The police had shown it to him during the investigation. He'd tried to forget it 1,000 times and failed every time. The second photo showed the scene from a different angle. Emergency vehicles, police tape, officers combing through the wreckage. His hands started to shake. The third photo was one he'd never seen before. It showed a girl being loaded into an ambulance. Small, covered in dirt. Her face turned away from the camera, but in her arms, clutched tight against her chest, was something blue, a teddy bear. Thomas dropped the photo like it had burned him. He grabbed the rest of the contents. There were papers, official-looking documents with stamps and signatures, hospital records from Hospital General de Guadalajara, dated October 2nd, 2003. Patient, female child, approximately 6 to 7 years old. Condition, head trauma, multiple contusions, severe shock, mental status, unresponsive to questions, appears to have amnesia, possessions, one stuffed animal, blue bear, notes, no identification, police searching for family. Thomas read it 3 times, his vision blurring. The hospital was 30 kilometers from where they'd found Margaret's car. 30 kilometers. Less than 20 miles. All these years, and Lily had been right there. There was one more item in the envelope. A single piece of paper, folded once. Thomas opened it with trembling fingers. The message was typed. Impersonal. Eleanor knew. She always knew. Ask her why she never told you. Thomas stared at the words until they stopped making sense. Then they made sense again, in a way that felt like a knife twisting in his gut. Eleanor knew. His sister. His blood. The woman who'd stood beside him at Margaret's funeral. Who'd held his hand at the memorial service for Lily. Who'd helped him run the company when he could barely get out of bed in the morning. She knew. Thomas stood so abruptly, his chair fell backward. He grabbed his keys, his phone, the envelope. He didn't bother with a jacket. Didn't bother locking the door. He just drove. Eleanor's estate was in Malibu. A sprawling, modern thing made of glass and steel perched on a cliff overlooking the ocean. Thomas had been there exactly twice. Once when she'd first bought it, and once for a Christmas party he'd left after 10 minutes. He didn't knock. He had a key. Eleanor had insisted all those years ago. In case of emergency, this qualified. She was in the living room, sitting on a white leather sofa that probably cost more than most people's cars, a glass of wine in her hand, laptop open on the coffee table. She looked up when Thomas burst in, and for just a second, less than a second, he saw fear flash across her face. Then it was gone, replaced by practiced surprise. "Thomas, what are—" He threw the envelope at her. Papers scattered across the pristine floor, photographs sliding across the marble. "Is it true?" His voice was low, dangerous. "Did you know?" Eleanor set down her wine glass carefully. Too carefully. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Don't." Thomas stepped closer. "Don't you dare lie to me. Not about this, not about her." Eleanor looked at the papers on the floor. Her jaw tightened. "Who sent you this? Does it matter? Is it true?" She stood, smoothing her silk blouse, buying time. "Thomas, you need to calm down. You're not thinking clearly. Answer me." The shout echoed through the house. Eleanor flinched for a long moment. They just stared at each other, brother and sister, the last of the Whitaker family, and something broken, irreparable, stretched between them. Eleanor picked up her wine glass and took a long sip. "Yes," she said finally. "I knew." The floor seemed to tilt under Thomas's feet. He'd expected it. The envelope had prepared him, but hearing her say it out loud was different. It was real. How long? Does it matter? How long? Eleanor's mask cracked. A year, maybe 2. After the accident, I hired a private investigator to close the case, to give you peace. He found records of a girl matching Lily's description admitted to a hospital in Guadalajara. Same age, same time frame, head trauma, amnesia. And you didn't tell me. It wasn't a question. No. Why? Thomas's voice broke. Why would you do that? Eleanor laughed. Actually laughed. A bitter, hollow sound. Why? Because you were falling apart. Thomas, you couldn't function. Someone had to run the company. Someone had to keep everything from collapsing. And that someone was me. She was my daughter. She was a vegetable. Eleanor's composure shattered. She didn't remember you. Didn't remember her name. She was brain damaged, traumatized, useless. What were you going to do? Bring her home. Let her drool on herself while you played daddy to a stranger. It would have destroyed you. Thomas felt like he'd been punched. That wasn't your decision to make. Someone had to make it. You were too weak. No. Thomas shook his head. No, that's not why. You didn't care about protecting me. You cared about the company, about the inheritance. Eleanor's face went cold. So what if I did? I built this empire alongside you. I made the hard choices you couldn't make. I earned my place, and I wasn't going to let some brain-dead orphan take it away from me. She's my daughter. She's nobody. She doesn't even know who you are. She grew up in poverty, hauling freight like a common laborer. What kind of life is that for a Whitaker? She's better off not knowing. Thomas looked at his sister, really looked at her, and saw a stranger. Maybe she'd always been a stranger. Maybe he'd just been too blind to see it. Get out of my life, he said quietly. Thomas, I said get out. You're done. The company, the board, everything. I want your resignation on my desk by morning. Or I go to the press with all of this. I'll destroy you. Eleanor's face went pale. You wouldn't. Try me. They stared at each other, and Thomas saw the exact moment she realized he meant it, that she'd finally pushed him too far. Fine, Eleanor said, her voice like ice. Take it all, the company, the money, your precious broken daughter. But don't come crying to me when you realize she's not who you want her to be. She's not Lily. Lily died in that accident. What's left is just a shell. Thomas turned and walked toward the door. She'll disappoint you, Eleanor called after him. Just like everyone disappoints you. He didn't look back. Outside, the sun was setting over the Pacific, painting the sky in shades of orange and red. Thomas sat in his car and looked at the hospital records again, at the photograph of the small girl clutching the blue bear. Lily. His Lily. She was out there somewhere. Alive. Real. And he was going to find her. No matter what it took, Thomas didn't sleep that night. He sat in his study, surrounded by the documents from the anonymous envelope, making phone calls. His private investigators had been searching for Riley for weeks with no luck, but now Thomas had something they didn't. Certainty. She wasn't just a possibility anymore. She wasn't a maybe or a hope or a desperate wish. She was Lily. His daughter was alive. By dawn, Thomas had mobilized every resource he had. He put a $100,000 reward for information leading to Riley's location. He contacted every trucking company, every truck stop, every freight dispatcher from California to Texas. He had people monitoring highway cameras, checking way stations, calling motels. Riley Monroe might know how to disappear, but Thomas Whitaker knew how to find what he was looking for. And he had 22 years of desperation fueling him. 3 days later, one of his investigators called. We got a hit. Truck matching her description was spotted at a rest stop outside of Bakersfield yesterday evening, heading north on the 99. Thomas was in his car within minutes. The 99 stretched through California's Central Valley like a gray ribbon through golden fields. Thomas drove faster than he should have, passing semis and farm trucks, his eyes scanning every rest stop, every gas station, every place a trucker might pull over. He found her at a truck stop just past Fresno. Her rig was parked at the far end of the lot, away from the other trucks. Thomas pulled in beside it, his heart hammering so hard he could feel it in his throat. The blue bear was still hanging from the mirror. Thomas got out of his car and approached the truck. Through the windshield, he could see Riley in the cab, eating something from a paper bag. She looked tired. Her hair was messier than usual, and there were dark circles under her eyes. He knocked on the door. Riley looked down, saw him, and her expression hardened immediately. She climbed out of the cab and dropped to the pavement, putting the truck between them. "You've got to be kidding me," she said. "How did you find me?" "Riley, please, I need to talk to you." "Yeah, well, I don't need to talk to you." She started walking toward the truck stop building. "Your sister already filled me in on your whole obsession thing. I'm not interested in being your next project." Thomas followed her. "Eleanor lied to you." "Right, because you're totally stable and normal, tracking me down like some kind of stalker." "I have proof." Thomas pulled the folded hospital records from his jacket. "Please, just look at this." Riley stopped walking. She turned around slowly, her arms crossed, her jaw set. "I don't want to see it." "Why not?" "Because," her voice cracked, "because I've spent my whole life being nobody. I've made peace with that. I don't need some rich guy with daddy issues trying to turn me into someone I'm not. I don't need the hope." "Okay, I can't afford hope." "What if it's not hope?" Thomas stepped closer. "What if it's the truth?" Riley shook her head, backing away. "I'm leaving. Don't follow me again." "Your name was Lily." Thomas's voice was urgent now, desperate. "Lily Whitaker. You were 6 years old. We lived in Pacific Palisades in a house with a garden full of roses. Your mother's name was Margaret. She used to sing to you every night before bed. You are my sunshine. You had a gap in your front teeth and you hated broccoli and you wanted to be a veterinarian when you grew up because you loved animals." Riley stopped walking. "On October 1st, 2003, Thomas continued, his voice shaking, "your mother took you to buy bread. It started raining. The roads were slippery. The car went off the road and down a ravine. Your mother died. But you survived. You were found walking on Highway 54 with a head injury and no memory. They took you to Hospital General de Guadalajara, and then to an orphanage. San Miguel." Riley turned around slowly. Her face had gone pale. "I bought you that bear," Thomas said, pointing to her truck. "At the county fair. You picked it because it was blue. Your favorite color. You named it Mister. Buttons because of the eyes. You took it everywhere. You wouldn't sleep without it." "Stop." Riley's voice was barely a whisper. "I looked for you." Tears were streaming down Thomas's face now. "God, I looked everywhere. For years I never stopped. I hired investigators. I searched hospitals. I offered rewards. But Mexico's systems weren't connected back then. The records were scattered. I couldn't find you. But you were there. You were right there. 30 kilometers from where the accident happened." Riley's hands were shaking. "Eleanor said you do this, that you've done it before. She lied. There were no other women. There was only you. Only ever you." Thomas pulled out his phone and showed her a picture. The old photograph from his desk. Lily at 6, grinning, holding the blue bear. "This is you. This is my daughter. This is who you were." Riley stared at the photo. Her breathing got faster, shallower. She looked at the picture, then at her truck, then back at Thomas. "I don't remember," she said, her voice breaking. "I don't remember any of it. I know. If what you're saying is true, if I'm really your daughter, why don't I remember you? Why don't I remember her? Why is there just nothing?" "Because your brain was protecting you from the trauma, from the pain. But it doesn't matter." Thomas took a step closer. "It doesn't matter if you remember. You're still my daughter. You're still Lily." "I'm Riley." She said it firmly, like she was trying to convince herself. "I've been Riley for 22 years. Then be Riley." Thomas's voice was gentle now. "Be whoever you want to be, but let me prove to you who you were. Let me do a DNA test. If I'm wrong, I'll leave you alone, I swear. But if I'm right, if you're right, then what? I suddenly have a father, a family, a past." Riley laughed bitterly. "That's not how it works. You can't just erase 22 years of being alone." "I'm not trying to erase anything. I just want the truth, don't you?" Riley looked at him for a long moment. In her eyes, Thomas saw fear and longing and anger all mixed together. He saw a child who'd been abandoned, even though it wasn't her fault. He saw someone who'd learned not to hope because hope hurt too much. "One test," she finally said. "One DNA test. And if it's negative, you disappear, you don't call, you don't follow me, you don't hire investigators, you let me go. And if it's positive," Riley's jaw tightened, "we'll cross that bridge when we come to it." They drove separately to a private medical facility in Fresno, the kind of place that catered to wealthy people who didn't want their business in public records. The procedure was quick. A cheek swab for each of them, signed paperwork, a promise of results in 3 weeks. Thomas tried to make conversation in the waiting room afterward, but Riley wasn't having it. She sat as far away from him as possible, staring at her phone, her leg bouncing nervously. "Riley, don't." She didn't look up. "Don't try to bond with me or whatever. This is just a test. It doesn't mean anything yet." "Okay." Thomas nodded. "Okay." When it was done, Riley stood to leave. "Can I at least have your number?" Thomas asked. "So I can call you when the results come in." She hesitated, then rattled off a number. Thomas saved it immediately, like it might disappear if he didn't. 3 weeks, Riley said at the door. "And then we'll know." 3 weeks, Thomas agreed. She left without looking back. Thomas sat in his car in the parking lot and watched her truck pull away. 22 years of searching, and now he had to wait 3 more weeks. But for the first time since that rainy October day in 2003, Thomas felt something he'd almost forgotten how to feel: hope. The first week was the hardest. Thomas couldn't focus on anything. He'd sit in meetings and realize an hour had passed without him hearing a single word. He'd start reading emails and find himself staring at the screen, seeing nothing. His phone was always within reach, always charged, always on full volume in case Riley called. She never did. He tried not to think about what she was doing, where she was driving, whether she was okay, but his mind wouldn't stop. Was she eating properly? Did she have a safe place to sleep? Was she thinking about the test, or had she pushed it out of her mind completely? On the 5th day, Thomas broke down and texted her, just checking in. "Hope you're doing okay," she responded 3 hours later. "I'm fine." That was it. 2 words. But Thomas read them 50 times, looking for hidden meaning, for tone, for anything that might tell him what she was feeling. He didn't text again. He'd promised not to push. And he meant it. Eleanor's resignation letter arrived on day 7. It was brief, professional, venomous in its politeness. She was stepping down from her position at Whitaker Industries to pursue other opportunities. No apology, no explanation. Just a clean severance of 22 years of working side by side. Thomas signed the acceptance letter without reading it twice. Riley spent the first week driving. She took every job she could find, kept herself busy, tried not to think. But the test hung over her like a storm cloud that wouldn't break. At night, parked at truck stops across 3 different states, she'd lie in her cab and stare at the bear hanging from her mirror. Mr. Buttons. She'd never known it had a name. Riley had spent her entire life being nobody's daughter, being the orphan, the foster kid who aged out, the drifter with no roots. She'd made peace with it. She'd built a life around the emptiness, learned to be strong because there was no other choice. But now there was a possibility, a maybe, a what, if that kept her awake until 3 in the morning. What if Thomas was right? What if she really was Lily Whitaker? What if somewhere in her broken memory, there was a mother who'd sung to her, and a father who'd looked for her, and a house with roses in the garden? What if she'd had a family all along and just couldn't remember? Riley picked up her phone a dozen times to call Thomas, to ask him questions, to hear more stories, to fill in the blank spaces in her head. But every time, she stopped herself. 3 weeks. She could wait 3 weeks. On day 9, she had the dream again. The one she'd been having since childhood. A woman's voice singing, the smell of coffee, sunshine through a window, and a feeling, warm, safe, loved, that she'd spent her whole life trying to recreate and never could. She woke up crying and hated herself for it. The second week, Thomas tried to prepare for both outcomes. If the test was positive, he needed to figure out how to reconnect with a daughter who didn't remember him. He couldn't just force himself into her life. She'd made it clear she didn't need saving, didn't need a father figure, didn't need anything from him. But God, he wanted to give her everything. He walked through the house, the mansion he'd built after the accident, the one that was supposed to make him forget, and saw it through Riley's eyes. Too big, too cold, too much empty space where a family should be. He called a real estate agent, started looking at smaller places, something normal, something that didn't scream, rich guy trying to buy affection. If the test was negative, Thomas didn't want to think about that. But he had to. If Riley wasn't Lily, then Lily really was gone, dead, lost forever, and he'd have to finally, truly, accept it. He didn't know if he could survive that twice. On day 13, his investigator called. "Mr. Whitaker, I found something interesting." Eleanor made a large cash withdrawal the day before Riley disappeared. $50,000. Thomas's jaw tightened. And I spoke to Riley's former landlord. He remembered a blonde woman in a Mercedes visiting Riley the night she left. So Eleanor had tried to pay her off. Of course she had. "Is there anything else?" Thomas asked. "No, sir. Just thought you should know." Thomas thanked him and hung up. Whatever Eleanor had said to Riley that night, it had been enough to make her run. Enough to make her believe Thomas was dangerous. Obsessive. Delusional. He wanted to be angry at his sister, but mostly he just felt tired. Riley called him on day 16. Thomas was in the middle of a conference call when his phone buzzed. He saw her name on the screen and immediately told everyone he'd call them back. "Riley, hey." Her voice was quiet, uncertain. "Is this a bad time?" "No, never." He walked to his office window, looking out at the city. "How are you?" "I'm okay, She paused. "I've been thinking about what you said, about my mother." Thomas's heart started racing. "Yeah, what was she like, Margaret?" He closed his eyes, and suddenly she was there. Margaret in their kitchen, flour on her nose from baking. Margaret in the garden, dirt on her knees, singing to the roses. Margaret at night, reading to Lily, her voice soft and warm. She was beautiful, Thomas said, but not in a way that mattered to her. She didn't care about appearances. She cared about people, about making things grow. Plants, relationships, joy. She volunteered at the animal shelter every weekend. "That's probably where you got your love for animals." "I like animals," Riley said softly. "I always have." She had this laugh that filled up a room, and she was stubborn. God, she was stubborn. Once she decided something, there was no changing her mind. He smiled. "You get that from her too." Riley was quiet for a moment. "What happened to her?" "In the accident," Thomas's smile faded. "She died on impact. The doctors said she didn't suffer. I hope that's true." "I'm sorry." "Me too." Another pause. Then, "Do you have pictures of her? Of us?" "Hundreds. Would you like to see them?" "Maybe. After the results come in, if..." Riley's voice wavered. "If it's true." "Okay, whenever you're ready." They talked for 20 more minutes. Small talk, mostly. Riley told him about a job she'd done hauling produce from Sacramento to Portland. Thomas told her about a new project the company was starting. Normal things. Easy things. When they hung up, Thomas realized he was smiling. Really smiling. For the first time in years. Day 21 arrived like a sentence being handed down. Thomas drove to the medical facility alone. He'd offered to meet Riley there, but she said she'd come separately. Needed her own space, her own car, her own escape route. If things went wrong, he got there early and waited in the parking lot, watched trucks and cars come and go, checked his phone every 30 seconds like the results might arrive early if he looked enough times. Riley's rig pulled in at exactly $2,000 p.m. She climbed down from the cab wearing clean jeans and a flannel shirt. She'd washed her hair, put on makeup, like she was going to a job interview instead of finding out if her entire life was a lie. They walked into the building together, not speaking, not touching. The receptionist recognized them immediately. "Mr. Whitaker, Miss Monroe, Dr. Patterson is ready for you." Dr. Patterson was a tall woman with kind eyes and a gentle smile. She gestured to 2 chairs in her office. "Thank you both for your patience," she said, opening a folder on her desk. "I have your results." Thomas reached for Riley's hand without thinking. She let him take it. Their eyes met. In that moment, Thomas saw everything. Her fear, her hope, her desperate need for this to be real, and her terror that it might be. Dr. Patterson looked at them over her reading glasses. "The test shows a 99.9% probability of paternity," she said. "Mr. Whitaker, Ms. Monroe is your biological daughter." The world stopped. Thomas felt Riley's hand tighten around his, felt his own breath catch, felt 22 years of grief and guilt, and searching suddenly crystallize into this single, perfect moment of truth. Riley's voice cracked. "I'm really her. I'm really Lily." "Yes," Dr. Patterson said gently. "You're really her." Thomas looked at his daughter, at Lily, at Riley, at this miracle sitting next to him, and broke down completely. 22 years of held-back tears finally breaking free. And Riley, who never cried, who'd learned to be tough because the world demanded it, put her head on her father's shoulder and cried too. They sat in Dr. Patterson's office for a long time after she left to give them privacy. Thomas held the paper in his hands. Official, clinical, undeniable, probability of paternity, 99.9%. The numbers blurred as tears kept falling, but he couldn't stop looking at them. Proof. Finally, after 22 years, proof that he hadn't lost everything. Riley stared at her own copy, her hands shaking. "I don't know what to do with this," she whispered. "I don't know how to be somebody's daughter." "You don't have to know right now." Thomas wiped his eyes, trying to pull himself together. "We'll figure it out. Together." Together. Riley tested the word like it was foreign. "I've never had a together before." Thomas wanted to hug her, to hold her like he used to when she was 6 and scared of thunderstorms. But she wasn't 6 anymore. She was a grown woman who'd survived 22 years without him. He couldn't just step in and expect everything to be okay. "Can I ask you something?" Riley's voice was small, uncertain. "Anything. Why didn't you give up? Most people would have moved on after a year, maybe 2, but you kept looking. Why?" Thomas looked at his daughter, really looked at her. He saw Margaret in the shape of her face, the stubborn set of her jaw. He saw the little girl who used to climb into his lap and make him read the same bedtime story 5 times in a row. "Because you were mine," he said simply. "You were my daughter, and I loved you. That doesn't just stop because someone disappears. Love doesn't have an expiration date." Riley's eyes filled with tears again. "I wish I could remember. I wish I could remember loving you back." "You will. Maybe not the memories, but the feeling. It's still there, buried somewhere. We'll find it." They left the medical facility separately. Riley needed time alone to process, and Thomas understood. But they exchanged numbers again, real ones this time, and promised to talk soon. Thomas drove home in a daze. The sunset painted the sky in brilliant oranges and purples, and for the first time in 2 decades, he actually noticed how beautiful it was. The world had color again, sound, life. When he got home, he went straight to his study and pulled out all the photo albums he'd kept hidden away. Margaret holding newborn Lily in the hospital, Lily's first birthday, cake smashed all over her face, the 2 of them at the beach, building sand castles, Christmas mornings, birthday parties, ordinary moments that had become priceless after they were gone. He spread them across his desk and just looked, really looked, trying to see them not as painful reminders of what he'd lost, but as proof of what he'd had, what he might have again, in some form. His phone rang. "Riley." "Hey," she said when he answered. "I know I said I needed time, but I'm sitting in my truck at a rest stop and can I come over? To your house? I know it's late, but..." "Yes, absolutely. I'll text you the address." "Okay, I'll be there in an hour." Thomas spent that hour in a panic. The house was a mess. Or at least, it felt like a mess. He picked up papers, straightened furniture, made coffee even though his hands were shaking too much to do it properly. When Riley's truck pulled up the long driveway, Thomas met her at the door. She stood on his doorstep, looking uncomfortable in her work boots and flannel, taking in the size of the house with wide eyes. "This is where you live." "Yeah, it's too big. I'm actually looking at smaller places." "Good. This place is ridiculous." She cracked a small smile. "Can I come in?" "Of course, sorry, yes." Riley stepped inside, and Thomas watched her take everything in. The high ceilings, the expensive furniture, the emptiness of a house meant for a family, but occupied by one lonely man. You said you had pictures, Riley said quietly. Of her, of Margaret, of us. Thomas led her to his study. The photo albums were still spread across the desk. Riley approached them slowly, like they might bite. She picked up the first one and opened it. The binding cracked. It hadn't been opened in years. There was Margaret, young and radiant, holding a tiny baby wrapped in a pink blanket. "That's you," Thomas said softly. "The day you were born. Margaret wouldn't let you go. The nurses kept trying to take you for tests, and she kept saying, 5 more minutes. Riley traced her finger over the photo. "She's beautiful. You look like her. More than I realized until now. Same eyes, same smile." They went through the albums together, Thomas narrating each photo. Lily's first steps, her first day of kindergarten, the county fair where they'd won the Blue Bear. Every mundane moment that Thomas had taken for granted until it was too late. Riley was quiet for most of it, just absorbing. But when they got to the last album, pictures from the week before the accident, she stopped. There was a photo of Margaret and Lily in the garden. Margaret was kneeling in the dirt, showing Lily how to plant roses. Both of them were laughing at something. Riley touched the photo and her breathing changed. Got faster, shallower. "Riley, you okay? I remember this." Her voice was barely a whisper. "The roses, the garden," she was singing. What was she singing? Thomas's throat tightened. "You are my sunshine." And then Riley started singing, soft and broken. "You are my sunshine, my only sunshine." It was Margaret's voice. The same melody, the same phrasing, coming out of his daughter's mouth after 22 years of silence. Thomas couldn't breathe. "You make me happy when skies are gray." Riley's voice cracked. I remember her singing this." She dropped the album and pressed her hands to her face, and Thomas finally pulled her into his arms. She tensed for a moment, then collapsed against him, sobbing in a way that sounded like it came from somewhere deep and wounded and finally breaking open. "I remember her," Riley kept saying. "I remember. She was singing. She was always singing." Thomas held his daughter and cried with her. 22 years of grief pouring out of both of them in the middle of his too big house with its too many empty rooms. "She loved you so much," Thomas whispered into Riley's hair. "Every single day, she loved you so much." They stayed like that for a long time, father and daughter, separated by trauma and time and circumstance, but finally, impossibly, together again. Later, after the tears had stopped and they were sitting in Thomas's living room drinking bad coffee, Riley spoke. "I'm still Riley. You know, I can't just become Lily again, that little girl in the pictures. She's gone. I'm sorry, but she is." "I know," Thomas said. "And I don't want you to be someone you're not. Riley is who you are. Riley is who you became. And that's okay. But you wanted Lily back. I wanted my daughter back. And I got her. Maybe she's different now. Maybe she drives trucks and swears and doesn't remember me. But she's still mine. You're still mine, if that's okay." Riley looked at him with those eyes, Margaret's eyes, and nodded slowly. "Yeah," she said. "Yeah, that's okay." Thomas smiled, really smiled. "Good. So what happens now?" "I don't know. I've got a job hauling equipment to Nevada tomorrow. After that, maybe we could have dinner or something. Get to know each other. I'd like that." Riley stood to leave, and Thomas walked her to the door. On the porch, she turned back. "Hey, Dad." Thomas's heart stopped. "Yeah, thank you for not giving up." "For looking. Always," Thomas said. "I'll always look for you." Riley nodded, then climbed into her truck. Thomas watched until her taillights disappeared down the driveway. Then he went back inside, back to the photos spread across his desk, and he smiled. His daughter was alive. His daughter was home. 3 months later, autumn arrived with crisp mornings and golden afternoons that reminded Thomas of better days. Eleanor Whitaker faced charges of obstruction of justice and withholding critical information in a missing person case. The district attorney had been eager to prosecute. It wasn't every day someone deliberately hid evidence that could reunite a family. Her lawyers managed to keep her out of prison. But the court of public opinion was less forgiving. The scandal destroyed what remained of her reputation. Former friends stopped returning calls, board positions evaporated. The inheritance she'd protected so viciously was stripped away, redirected to the daughter she'd tried to erase. Thomas felt no satisfaction in her downfall, just a hollow sadness for the sister he thought he'd known, who'd turned out to be someone else entirely. He sold the mansion. Riley had been right. It was ridiculous. He bought a modest house in Pasadena instead. 3 bedrooms, a yard with room for a garden, the kind of place where a family could actually live, not just exist. The day he moved in, Riley helped. She showed up in her truck with boxes and a toolkit, refusing to let the professional movers do everything. "If you're going to be my dad, you need to learn that not everything requires hiring people," she'd said, handing him a box labeled kitchen. "Sometimes you just roll up your sleeves and do it yourself." Thomas had laughed. It felt good to laugh again. They took it slow, building their relationship piece by piece like a puzzle with missing edges. Riley still drove her truck. That didn't change. She loved the road, the independence, the rhythm of constant movement. But now when she finished a job, she had somewhere to come back to. Thomas's new house became her landing spot between halls. She had her own room. He'd insisted on that. She decorated it herself. Simple, functional, nothing fancy. But the blue bear sat on the dresser, no longer hanging from a truck mirror, a place of honor. They had dinner together when she was in town. Sometimes Thomas cooked, badly, and Riley would laugh and take over. Sometimes they ordered takeout and ate on the back porch, talking about everything and nothing. Thomas told her stories about Margaret, about little Lily, about the life that had been stolen from her. Riley listened, sometimes crying, sometimes smiling, slowly building a picture of who she'd been. Some memories came back, small things mostly. The smell of Margaret's perfume, the sound of her laughter, the feeling of being safe, loved, wanted. But the big moments stayed lost, locked behind walls of trauma that might never come down. Riley made peace with that. She couldn't be the little girl in the photos, but she could be Thomas's daughter now. That was enough. On a Saturday morning in late October, Thomas took Riley to the cemetery. He hadn't been since the funeral. Couldn't bear it. But Riley wanted to meet her mother, even if it was just a name on a stone. Margaret's grave was under an oak tree, the headstone simple and elegant. Margaret Ann Whitaker, beloved wife and mother 1970-2003. Riley knelt in the grass and placed a bouquet of roses, yellow ones, Margaret's favorite. "Hi, Mom," she said softly. "I don't know if you can hear me, or if you even knew I survived, but I wanted to tell you I'm okay. It took a while, and I don't remember everything, but I'm okay now. I found Dad, or he found me. Either way, we're together." Thomas stood a few feet back, giving her space, his own throat tight with emotion. "I'm sorry I forgot you," Riley continued, her voice breaking. "I'm sorry I couldn't remember how much you loved me, but Dad's been telling me stories, and I'm starting to feel it, starting to understand. So thank you for singing to me, for the garden, for everything I can't remember but know was real." She stayed there for a long time, crying quietly, talking to a mother she'd lost twice, once in death, once in memory. Thomas eventually joined her, kneeling beside his daughter at his wife's grave, and together they mourned what they'd lost and celebrated what they'd found. The garden was Thomas's idea. He'd never been good with plants. That had been Margaret's domain. But he wanted to try, wanted to create something living and beautiful, something that connected past and present. Riley helped him design it. They cleared the back corner of the yard and planted roses first. Red, yellow, white, pink, Margaret's legacy. Blooming again, then they added other flowers, vegetables, herbs, things that would grow and change and require care. "It's not perfect," Riley said one afternoon, wiping dirt from her hands. "Some of these probably won't make it." "That's okay," Thomas said. "We'll try again. That's what you do with gardens. You keep trying." Riley looked at him and smiled. "Is that a metaphor for us?" "Maybe," she laughed. That sound still surprised him every time. A gift he'd thought he'd never hear again. "You're getting sappy in your old age." "I'm allowed. I've earned it." They worked in comfortable silence, the autumn sun warm on their backs. Thomas glanced at his daughter, at Riley, at Lily, at this miracle he'd been given, and felt something he hadn't felt in 22 years. Peace. Eleanor showed up one evening in November. Thomas was grilling dinner when her car pulled into the driveway. He recognized it immediately and felt his jaw tighten. Riley was inside making a salad. He walked around to the front yard to intercept. Eleanor looked different, older, tired. Her designer clothes were gone, replaced by jeans and a simple sweater. Her hair was shorter, grayer. The polish had cracked. "Thomas," her voice was hoarse. "Can we talk? There's nothing to say. Please, 5 minutes." Thomas crossed his arms but didn't walk away. Eleanor took a shaky breath. "I'm not here to apologize, because nothing I say will make it right. What I did, there's no excuse. I destroyed 22 years of your life and hers because I was greedy and selfish and..." She wiped her eyes. "I'm not asking for forgiveness. I don't deserve it. I just wanted you to know that I see it now. I see what I took from both of you. And I'm sorry." Thomas studied her face. She meant it. He could tell, but it didn't change anything. "Riley's inside," he said quietly. "She's making dinner. She's happy. And you're not part of that. You made your choices, Eleanor. Now you live with them." Eleanor nodded, tears streaming down her face. "I know. Tell her I'm sorry, please. Tell her I'm sorry for everything. Tell her yourself someday, when you've actually changed. Not just when you've lost everything, but not today. Today, she doesn't need your guilt." Eleanor looked toward the house, then back at Thomas. "She looks like Margaret." "Yeah, she does. Take care of her." "I will. That's my job. It always was." Eleanor got back in her car and drove away. Thomas watched until she disappeared, then went back to the grill. The steaks were perfect. That night, after dinner, Riley and Thomas sat on the back porch with coffee, watching the sun set over their imperfect garden. "I'm thinking about getting my own place," Riley said. "Nothing fancy. Just an apartment close by, so I'm not always crashing here." Thomas felt a pang of disappointment, but nodded. "That makes sense. You're a grown woman. You need your own space. But I'll still come by for dinners, for garden duty, for all the dad stuff." "Dad stuff," Thomas smiled. "I like the sound of that." Riley held up her coffee mug. "To new beginnings." Thomas clinked his mug against hers. "To family." They sat in comfortable silence as darkness fell and stars appeared overhead. The blue bear, Mr. Buttons, sat on the porch railing between them, a guardian of their shared past and uncertain future. Riley looked at it and smiled. "You know what's weird? I used to think that bear was all I had, my only connection to anything real. But it wasn't. It was never just the bear. It was always you. I just didn't know it yet." Thomas reached over and squeezed her hand. "You were always mine too, even when I couldn't find you. Especially then. I'm glad you didn't stop looking. I never would have. Not in a million years." Riley leaned her head on his shoulder, and Thomas closed his eyes, breathing in this moment, his daughter, his miracle, his second chance at being the father he should have been all along. The past didn't hurt anymore. It just was. A story of loss and love, and the impossible journey back to each other.